Good morning, class 9 students. Hope you are all fine and safe at home. Today again we are back with our online class. Before we touch what we are going to do in today's online class, let me just remind you what we had taken in our last online class. There we had written the syllabus for English paper 1 and English paper 2. Today in fact we are going to make use of English paper 2. And as you know, in English paper 2 there are two books for you. One is a play, The Tempest, written by William Shakespeare, and the other is Treasure Trove, in which you have two sections, poetry and prose. Prose here means stories. So in poetry and prose there are beautiful poems written by the world's greatest poets. So let us be fortunate to take up a poetry class even though we are locked inside our houses. The first and foremost, what I want to tell to my students is that whenever any explanation in our English 2 class is done, please, you must be ready with your textbook and pencil, so that whenever any difficult word is explained in the line, you have to quickly note them down in your textbook, and later on copy these words with the simplest meanings in your exercise notes, so that it would be easier for you to sit and revise looking at those simple words that you have jotted down in your exercise note. So today's first class in the poetry section would be the poem number 6, Daffodils, written by William Wordsworth. Now, before we touch our lines in the poem, I just want to brief out about the poet William Wordsworth, who he was, what source made the poet to write this poem, Daffodils, and what is the moral of this poem. Regarding William Wordsworth, he was born on 7th April in the year 1770 in Cookermouth, Cumberland, England. He died on 23rd April in the year 1850. It is said, no study of English literature is complete without the reading of William Wordsworth. Truly, William Wordsworth was the greatest of the romantic poets. His writings are very, very lucid. He describes common people, common things in his poems that makes us very easy to understand. The great poet William Wordsworth, in fact, was the greatest poet of nature. To say, William Wordsworth loved the nature like nobody else had done. The source of the poem that he wrote, Daffodils, is he was with his sister Dorothy Wordsworth. Together they had made a casual walk, and in their casual walk the poet William Wordsworth happened to see the host of daffodils, and when he saw them he fell in love with them, and thus he made a poem on daffodils. So this means the poem Daffodils is the real life experience of the poet William Wordsworth. Now, what kind of poem is this Daffodils? Daffodils is an eulogy? Now children, what is an eulogy? An eulogy is a piece of writing praising something or someone. Here the poet has praised daffodils. That is why the poem Daffodils is an eulogy. So I hope the background of the poem is clear to you. Now let us come back to the poem and see what the poet has written. The poem Daffodils, written by William Wordsworth. It is a lyric poem. Now what is a lyric poem? A poem which is written in a lyrical form is called a lyric poem. Here lyric means song-like form. It is written just like a song. So it is called a lyric poem. Daffodils are yellow colored flowers. They look beautiful, they look lovely. So the poet here on 15th April in the year 1802, he was living with his sister Dorothy Wordsworth at the Lake District of Northern England. One day, the day 15th April in the year 1802, he made a casual walk. A leisure walk is a casual walk with his sister Dorothy Wordsworth at the Lake District of Northern England. He then came across the daffodils. So when he saw, he liked them, and when he returned to his home, he then sat down to write a poem on daffodils. Now what he wrote in the poem, here we go, let's see. Daffodils by William Wordsworth. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills. The poet describes a time when he moved about pointlessly, aimlessly, as a cloud that floats high over vales. Vales means valleys and hills. Here wandered means moved around aimlessly, pointlessly, where there is no fixed destination, just to take a casual walk. So the poet was moving about leisurely, casually, just like a cloud that floats up in the valleys and hills. When all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. When all at once means suddenly, by chance. When suddenly he saw a crowd of golden daffodils, he encountered, he faced a host means field, a field of golden daffodils. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, beside him means at the side of, just at the side of the golden daffodils, a field of golden daffodils, there was a lake beneath the trees, and these daffodils were beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Here fluttering means vibrating, making a low continuous sound, and dancing in the breeze. Breeze means soft wind that was blowing. So the poet in the opening stanza discussed about his leisure walk to the lakeside, where he came across, where he encountered a host of golden daffodils that was at the side of the lake, below the trees. They were fluttering and dancing in the gentle push of the wind. Thus the beauty of the nature is described by the poet in the opening stanza. How the poet Wordsworth was drawn towards the beauty of these golden daffodils. Now we move on to the second stanza. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way. The poet goes on to tell more about the detail of these daffodils. Continuous as the stars that shine. So when at night, the clear full moon night, the stars do twinkle continuously in the sky and twinkle on the Milky Way. The Milky Way is the galaxy that consists of solar system, that consists of our solar system. So just like the continuous twinkling of the stars up in the sky in the clear night, these golden daffodils were seen just like the twinkling of stars. They stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. They stretched a never-ending line. So when the poet stood and looked at the field of golden daffodils, he found the stretch of the golden daffodils. It had no ending. And the daffodils were even growing along the margin of a bay. Here bay means the coastal body of water, where the land surface is little bit curved in and the water enters in. Till there was no space for the land without the golden daffodils. 10,000 saw I at a glance. A glance means looked. So when the poet looked, he saw 10,000 golden daffodils there. Now how is the poet sure that there were 10,000 daffodils? Here 10,000 is a hyperbole. We call it a hyperbole. Means when the person has seen anything and when he assumes himself more than what he has seen is called hyperbole. Thus the poet has used hyperbole here and tells us the number of golden daffodils in the field. So he told there are 10,000 of such golden daffodils when he looked at them. Tossing their heads in a sprightly dance. Tossing means moving. So these flowers, golden daffodil flowers, were moving their heads in the gentle push of the wind in a sprightly dance, and they were having a very lively, a full of energy dance. Sprightly means lively or full of energy. These golden daffodils were live for the poet to know. They danced in the gentle push of the wind, and it was so beautiful. Now we move on to the third stanza. The waves beside them dance. And as I told you in the opening of the stanza of the poem, just at the side of the golden daffodils, those which were growing, there was a lake. In the lake, there were the waves. There were the rising waters in the lake. And see what happened. When the golden daffodils were dancing by the push of the gentle wind, the waves in the lakes were also dancing. Look at the dances. But they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. But they refers to golden daffodils. They outdid. Outdid means win or surpass or excel. The sparkling waves in glee. Here glee means great delight. The golden daffodils danced so well that they outwitted the dance of the waves in the lake. That means to the eyes of the poet, he found the dances of the golden daffodils were better than the dances of the waves in the lake. A poet could not be gay. A poet who was lonely out there could not be gay. That means gay here means happy. The poet found himself the happiest person on earth that moment when he saw the golden daffodils dancing. In such a jocund company, when the poet found himself in the jocund company of the golden daffodils. Here jocund company means in the friendship of the cheerful friendship of the golden daffodils. The poet takes the golden daffodils as his friends now, and he found very delight and happy when he was in the company of these cheerful friends who are the golden daffodils. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth thy soul to me had brought. I gazed and gazed. That means the poet kept on looking at these golden daffodils. But little thought what wealth the soul to me had brought. But what personal experience he felt at that moment, he could not realize. When he looked at the golden daffodils, what was the gain of looking at those golden daffodils? He could not at once realize the fact. Now, what happens to the poet when he returned home? So after his lazy walk with his sister Dorothy Wordsworth, he saw the golden daffodils, then he returned to his home. Now the last stanza, fourth stanza, takes place after some days back in his home. Now what happens here? For oft means often, is a poetic word which means often, which means several times, many times. For oft when on couch I lay, couch means comfortable seating. We can call it furniture, sofa, you can say. For oft when on my couch I lie, I was sitting myself in the comfortable seating in my sofa, in vacant or in pensive mood. I was in a vacant mood. Vacant means empty. There's nothing in my mind. Or in pensive mood. Here pensive means sad. I was unhappy. I was sad. I was in a very sad mood. Seated myself back at home. Right. In the comfortable seating. They flashed upon that inward eye. I was restless. I was not knowing what to do. Suddenly, they flashed. Now what or who are they? Here they are the golden daffodils. The golden daffodils memory came back to me suddenly when I was seated myself in an empty and sad mood. They flashed upon that inward eye. Inward eye refers to the deeper spiritual vision. I looked at those golden daffodils with my spiritual eye, which is the bliss of solitude. That was the happiness of singleness. Bliss of solitude means happiness of singleness. I was alone right now, seated myself in the comfortable seating. That time when I had a leisure walk on 15th April in the year 1802, I was also lonely, floating like a cloud, right? So when I was in a very, very sad mood, suddenly the memory of the golden daffodils that I saw in my last visit came back to me. Now what was the impact of my recollection of the golden daffodils in me? And then my heart with pleasure fills. Right, as soon as I recollected the memory of the golden daffodils, my heart became pleasured. My heart became very happy. My emptiness was gone. My pensive mood vanished, disappeared. I became very happy. My heart was filled with joy and dances with the daffodils. And my heart began to dance, remembering the dances of the daffodils. And thus I became satisfied with my last unknown visit to the field of golden daffodils. So here we came to an end of this poem. I hope you understood what the poet William Wordsworth told about his real life experience. The moral of the poem is very clear for us. It is telling us here that we should enjoy nature. We should never destroy nature. If we were in the place of the poet, seeing those golden daffodils, we would have plucked some of the daffodils and brought home. But look at the difference. The poet was really in love with nature. So the poet instructed us in this poem, saying us that we should love nature, we should protect nature, we should defend nature. Right? If we love nature, nature will love us in return. And when we take care of nature, like what the poet has done, in the time to come, when we are in sad mood or in pensive mood as the poet was in, the nature will help us to bring the happiness in us. The recollection, the memory that the poet had brought with him after seeing the golden daffodils, right? The poet seemed never unhappy then. This is what the poet told us in the poem. So let's end up our today's class. Hope you understood. The exercises on this poem will be soon given to you for your work. Thank you so much.